Hello, and welcome to Converge Church. We're so glad you joined us today. Today's worship experience will begin momentarily. If you're a first-time guest with us, we are honored to have you here. Please feel free to stop by the Connection Center in the lobby or ask one of our team members if you have any questions. We're here to serve you. And if you're a returning guest or you're part of our Converge family, we'd like to say welcome back. Once again, thank you for being our guest today and enjoy the rest of the worship experience.
Hey there, Converge Nation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. We're so honored and humbled that you have prioritized this moment with us. And we trust that something we say over the next hour or so, or maybe even longer, will bless you. As you know, we've been in a sermon series that we've called Verses, He Said, She Said, and the Truth. And we're learning how to navigate some of the challenges that we experience in our interpersonal relationships. Now, the principles we've been sharing are transferable. This is not just limited to marriage. What we're sharing from God's word and some of our life experiences touch all of our interpersonal relationships. So if you're single again, engaged, married, listen, this series is for you. If you're a boss, an employer, an employee, a coworker, the principles we share over the next several minutes will bless you. This is week 3, right? I started to say week 2, man, time flies. This is week 3, and we have some very special guests with us. We're so honored that you guys have joined us. And today we're going to kind of continue in the vein of last week, right? Because we're talking about rules of engagement. But there's a twist to what we're going to be sharing. And we're going to hear from our guest and discover what it looks like to build the dream and to build the legacy together. And I know you're ready to go because I know you got your questions lined up. But before we do that, by way of introduction, we're honored to have Darnell and his wife Danyel with us. And I don't want to steal your thunder because you're new to Converge Church, and I know a little bit of who you are and your story. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourselves, your story, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'll start. First of all, we're just so happy to be here and happy to be a part of this. So we were excited when we got the offer, and like I said, we're happy to be here. So I'm Darnell Jones, originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. Migrated, Salt Lake City. I've heard you guys like Salt Lake or Park City specifically.
Park City is our favorite winter destination, hands down.
We started off loving Salt Lake City.
We did start.
I always talked about it. So hopefully, when we're big time, we can have a vacation home in Salt Lake City and drive up to Park City.
Yeah, just invite us. Just invite us.
Yes. We will. Yeah. Come on, somebody.
But yeah, by way of Salt Lake City, moved to Dallas in 2009, and took my first role here, and was fortunate enough to meet Danielle just shortly after that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. He's not gonna brag on himself. So he completely skipped like 4 pivotal things, right? Salt Lake City, former professional athlete, grew up, his mother was an amazing, strong woman. Darnell is biracial. His mom is a beautiful white woman. His dad is, who's passed, is an amazing African-American male. Yeah. And in Salt Lake City. So I say that because I think that's such a pivotal part, that you excelled as an athlete in Salt Lake City, being a biracial, and your brilliant kinesiology degree. See, I will brag on him.
Yeah. Come on, listen, Converge Nation, that's how you do it.
That's the partnership. That's the yin and yang for sure.
The yin and yang. Just out of curiosity, since we're talking about verses, what would be your dream versus battle? Any era, any genre, who would you like to see going head to head?
Oh, wow. Man, because there have been so many. Who would we like to see?
I mean, it's easy for me though.
Okay, go.
It's like Tupac and Biggie. I mean, that's what
Tupac and Biggie. That would be a classic versus battle right there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I mean, I'm going to stay on the same vein. You know, if Aaliyah was here and maybe Sade, Aaliyah and
Oh,
Sade.
wow.
Yeah,
Very cool.
that would be
a great versus
That
battle.
would be a great
versus battle.
Yes.
All
Well,
right.
Danielle has to introduce herself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Danielle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, you know, I will go short and high level because you'll probably say I can get long-winded. But Danielle Sorrenti Jones, I need you guys to get excited about the fact that I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. Country girl from Jacksonville, Florida. Similar, you know, story as Darnell. Parents were married for 16 years, got a divorce when I was 5 years old, grew up with a very strong, amazing mom. And I would say that, you know, church was our foundation. I did everything in the church. Bethel Baptist Institutional Church with Pastor Rudy McKissick, senior, of course, and Rudy
Legend.
McKissick Jr. Yes,
Wow.
we love.
Yeah.
And that really shaped and molded the person that you see today. Was the people that my mother put around me, which was so great. College, then over 2 decades of experience in medical device sales, marketing, operations, multiple areas, and then Darnell and I kind of moved to Dallas around the same time. Met each other, and you know, I'll let him tell that story because it'll be interesting how he tells that story for the 100th time because it's always different. And here we are today. Businesses, babies, and building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
TEDx speaker. Spoke on the platform at Amazon with over 30,000 people with the president of Amazon just this last, 3 or 4 months ago. So I'll brag on her a little bit too. It's easy for me to brag. I mean, it's easy. She's got a lot that I can talk about.
Yeah.
Perfect, beautiful compliment to one another.
It really is. You guys really are. And I know you're a sucker for love stories. Did you want them to tell their love story or like the details? And
Yes. Because that would be a great beginning to the verses. So since she's allowing him to tell the story, then she can make sure he's got all of the details intact. And so your anniversary's coming up, Darnell, so I'm rooting for you. How many years will it be?
9.
9
years. How quickly that I can answer that.
That's good, man. You're on top of it, man.
Yes,
That's awesome.
yes. So tell us how you met and fell in love and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so this story, it changes every time I tell it.
Okay.
And I have to change it based on who I'm sharing it with. I can tell you it was an after hours nightclub, or I can tell you it was a lounge, or I can say it was a
we
dance.
are free here, so it can be what it actually is because you all are together,
Right.
and the Lord is making a way. So whatever it was good.
Right. And I say that facetiously, but it was a nightclub, right? We both were single. We lived in Dallas, and we were hanging out and enjoying ourselves and having a good time.
But I was there for a different reason.
I don't know.
After a birthday party with a group, and Darnell was there because he was
I like to dance.
the night on the
nice.
town. Go ahead.
I don't like to dance anymore, but back then I did like to dance.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay.
No, but
Were you a good dancer? Are you
No.
a good dancer? Oh, no, but you just enjoyed it.
yeah, I just enjoyed myself, and it was. I'm not by any stretch. And right now you couldn't get me to dance, right? But no, so we met at a nightclub. I had a good friend of mine with me, and I just remember this girl walking in, and I was like, wow, like there was this glow about the room when she walked in. I was like, man, she is beautiful, right? And of course, there's a bunch of pretty girls there. There was just something different. I thought, geez, she is beautiful. And so a gentleman who's a mutual friend of ours now, I had met him the night before, and he invited me out that night. And so I see him go over and greet her, and I'm like, oh, wow, he knows the girl that I just saw.
Right.
And I'm like, perfect. I'm going to find out what's going on and whatever else. So he comes back over shortly after, and I said, hey, who's that girl you just embraced over there? Who is she? And he says, oh, her name's Danielle, but don't worry, she doesn't talk to anyone, so don't waste your time. He said she don't talk to anyone. And so little did he know, in my head, I thought, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, right? That's perfect.
Right.
I want the one that doesn't talk to anyone. Right.
Right.
Not that I was that confident, but it's easier to have that conversation if I know that 10 of the guys have had that conversation. So
Right.
I made my way over to where she was at strategically, right?
I like that. Strategically.
Yeah, strategically. Yeah. I didn't dart straight over there. I danced over here, and shuffled a little bit over here, and eventually I got within arm's reach. And just as I got within arm's reach, she has a friend that's one of our best friends to date, Jackson. And this is how cool he is. He goes by one name. He doesn't have a first and last name.
Like Prince Jackson.
It's just
Oh,
Jackson.
wow.
Like Beyonce Jackson.
And so
Wow, I like
Jackson,
that.
who
That's
I've
cool.
come to love, and actually who I should love more because I don't know if I'll give him this credit, but as I'm next to her and him, he drops to the floor and does this dance move.
Like John Travolta move.
Yeah, it was like there's a Studio 54 drop and pop up. And as he pops up, he spills your drink
Oh, wow.
On you.
spills her drink on me. And it wasn't like a dramatic, all over me, but it was a little bit spilled on me, and enough for me to have the conversation to say,
Was it on purpose? Did he do that on purpose?
No.
It was. Okay.
Absolutely.
No, we were in our own little world.
They were in
I
their
could
world.
see him,
Okay.
looking at me, but
that's the
we were
first
in
time
our
I've ever
own
known that she said she could see me. I didn't never know that. But
Yeah.
Wow,
whatever.
there's
You
a new
add a
twist to
little
the
thing.
story that.
Yeah.
Come on,
It
somebody.
would change. I told you it would
I
change.
have to pepper my little piece
There you
every
go.
now and then.
So a little piece of the drink spills on me, and I make it a more dramatic scene than it is, and I'm like, oh my goodness, sister spilled on me, right? So now we have to have a conversation. So I say, hey, let me buy you another drink because you just spilled your drink. And she says, no, I'll buy you a drink. And I was so confused because I was like, but I have a drink. I don't. But at that point, I realized, okay, she doesn't need anything from anyone. And back to what Sean said. She doesn't talk to anyone. It was kind of all coming together. So,
Right.
long story short, we had a mutual connection. We both worked in the medical device industry at the time. So that was kind of our common ground, and we talked about it and joked about it and what have you, and just had a good conversation. And I was fortunate enough to get her phone number at the end of the night, and she, I think we went to brunch the next day, and
We
I
did.
spent the most amount of money on a brunch or a dinner or a lunch that I
You
spent
went all
ever.
in, man. Come on.
Yeah, and I thought, man, this could get really expensive.
Now I
That's
love
awesome.
that you said something that I want to ask about, especially because we're talking about versus relationships. How did that make you feel when she said, "No, I'll buy you a drink"? Because sometimes that can be off-putting to men, and sometimes it can be like, "Oh, well, she doesn't need anything." When I was teaching school, there was an African-American assistant principal at the school. This was outside of Atlanta. And I was single at the time, and my maiden name is Huff. And he said, "Miss Huff, I wish I could introduce you to one of my sons." He said, "But they would never, they wouldn't, you would never make it with them." And I was like, I didn't know whether to be offended. I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He said, "You are wonderful, but you don't need them."
Oh,
He said, "I've got one at Yale and one it's either Princeton or Harvard or whatever, and they're both going into law." He said, "But I don't know what I did wrong. It's something about them is they need women to need them." And I'm thinking, I'm just a little old school teacher, but that always stuck with me in a positive sense. So when Daniel responded, "I'll buy you a drink," let's talk about that a little bit. How did that make you feel?
I can see how it could be a turnoff to certain men, but I think for me, there was an internal confidence and a self-worth about me that I didn't
Right.
take it as she doesn't need anything from me or I can't provide anything. I took it as she can stand on her own, and there's probably been a bunch of guys offering to buy drinks, and she was essentially saying, "No, we can have a conversation about something else." But as far as,
Right.
I get why you're trying to buy me a drink. We're trying to start a conversation here. So maybe I just wasn't quick enough to understand what she was coming at, but I never took it as. And she smiled with it, right? So there was an energy when she said it versus, "I don't need it," and it was kind of close.
Right,
It was a
right,
smile and kind of, "I'll buy you a drink," So I took it that way.
Very
It was,
cool.
Now, I'm curious, especially for all of the single ladies who think they just want to use that line now the next time they're out.
That is a pretty smooth line.
It is
No, I'll
smooth,
buy you
especially
a-
smooth with a smile.
Right.
Now, that
Come on.
is, and I think sometimes in our independence, we can be off-putting. We think we're being independent and maybe a little measured, and it is a complete turnoff. So I want the thought behind the statement. Why did you say, "No, I'll buy you a drink"?
So it was two reasons. One, I'm from the South, so I'm a Southern Belle. We had spilt the drink on his shoes. So the initial thought in my head was, "No, I'll buy you a drink. We spilt it on your shoes." And then I think the little sassiness came because I wanted him to know that, I did think he was cute. And if we're going to have a conversation, it's not about what you have, because at that time I can get whatever it is that I want. So I'm cool on that end. I want to see your heart. I want to see your brain. I want to see, those things are very attractive to me. So I think in that millisecond, which is insane, it was really those two things that got twisted that made my tone the way it was. And I love the fact of his reaction. He did light up when I said that. And I was like, oh, I'm being a little bold, and you like it, and I think this is great. And then we actually had
But
a
I
debate.
didn't let her buy me a drink.
But you did.
No,
Right,
did not.
right.
Too old fashioned for that.
Yeah, he did not.
That's good.
He did not.
Yes.
Now, would that have changed the dynamic if he had let you buy him a drink at all, or?
That is funny.
Yeah,
It might have.
it might have. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I think I was speaking, spewing venom, but I don't really know how I would have received that if he would have let me.
Let's go
That's
to the bar.
quite
I
interesting.
knew too, actually.
Because I'm, again, a Southern Belle.
Right.
So I think I was trying something and saying something that was sincerely genuine with a little twist. But if he had reacted that way, that would have made me feel like, okay, I'm not the Jim. I might have felt a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know that it would have been the end all be all if I would have, not have given you my number, but I think I would have been like, oh, okay, well, yeah. I said it and you let me buy you a drink.
Wow.
Note taken.
Yes.
And 9 years later, you guys are still in love, still in the honeymoon phase.
Absolutely.
You've grown your family. Is that right? Any kids?
Oh yeah.
All right. Tell us about the kiddos.
I'm gonna let you start.
Yeah. So we have an 8-year-old Hartley Rose Jones, our entertainer, 8 going on 28, and a 5-year-old Harper Jazz Jones, and definitely call them both our miracle babies, because when we met, I think one of the reasons I fell in love with Darnell is we were still dating, kind of going on meet and greets. And I've been suffering from fibroids since the age of 20. And I've had multiple surgeries where I found out, I had to have a myomectomy when we were dating. And I'll never forget, I woke up, my mother was there in the hospital, and I had canceled the surgery. I was supposed to have it done, and they were going to just do some really major surgery, and I got scared. So I canceled the surgery, and then I was going to get robotic surgery. And so I was nervous about the whole process, and I had endometriosis. They told me I would have a difficult time getting pregnant. I had to tell him all of this. Well, he showed up in the hospital that night, and I will never forget, I was still groggy from the anesthesia, and I was like, Mom, who's out there? And she said, your friend Darnell, he's got a cute little teddy bear. And I was like, oh, fix my hair, my baby, oh, help me. And I remember so vividly just being completely out of it, because I was actually in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had an ileus a reaction from the anesthesia, so I was really out. But I remember him so vividly above that bed, and I thought, wow, I told you that this was a challenging surgery. I may not be able to have kids. And you are here in Denton from Dallas late at night to come see me.
Didn't I bring a peach cobbler or something?
No, that's how I got fat after I lost 12 pounds in the hospital. You fed me, and that was actually way to my heart as well. But
Beautiful story.
So 2 kids later, miracle babies.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, congratulations. Well, I'm eager to hear a little bit more about your story, because we heard a little bit about your love story, how you met, but what our audience, I guess you alluded to it early on, but what we're going to talk a little bit more about is how you guys are building your dream and building your legacy together. And a big part of that is the fact that you are both entrepreneurial. You have a very successful business. And so tell us what it is that you guys do, I guess primarily in terms of your business as being entrepreneurs, and the origin of it and how it's grown and evolved over time.
You definitely will start that one.
Yeah, sure. So Power Hands, and the reason, and I think this part is important, right, that Darnell's like, you definitely can start this one, is because when we started Power Hands 7 years ago, definitely started with Darnell based on his amazing passion for basketball and a MacGyver-like technique that he was using when he grew up. which then evolved to our first patented product. That the design was based on his MacGyver-like technique, and I added a little bit of design from a marketing and fashion perspective, but we built the business and launched it together. And Darnell was the CEO at that time. And we were on a fast trajectory, growing every year. And I think, again, this part is very transparent. I went back, I was on maternity leave, out of medical device, and we didn't know whether we should jump, both of us, and be in this business together, or we should teeter, and I think that's so challenging for entrepreneurs and for couples as a whole, because at the end of the day, you've got to pay your bills. And so we started this business and didn't know that it was going to take off, but we also needed to make some decisions. So I think I went back, Darnell was running the business, and then I wasn't happy in my current situation, and we basically made a decision that, you know what, Danielle, I think that you should be the CEO, right? Run the business. I will have another job, and then let's see how it goes from there.
Wow.
And again, that's another lesson. The fact that Darnell took an opportunity to see me and my gifts, not that he couldn't have been the CEO the entire 7 years and be amazing, but he said, you know what, Danielle, let's look at this way. With what I've seen, your talent, let you run the business and we go from there. So now I'll tell the story of Power Hands, because I'm the CEO now. Darnell started off being the CEO of Power Hands. And what has been pivotal is, we have grown into a global company, but we've really grown globally as a family, understanding that this is our ministry, right? Whether it's Power Hands or something else, building the legacy together is our ministry, right?
That's huge.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah,
and once
really
you kind of turn that faucet on, that we're not meant to be married just to be partners from a name perspective, have kids, have separate jobs. No. We're supposed to combine our brilliance, whatever that is, and do things like Stop One Power Hands, which is a global athletic training and fitness product tech company. That's incredible, right?
It really is.
We have built this company. We've sold in over 87 countries, created an omni-channel across, from our Shopify to the Amazon to Walmart.com, going into Foot Locker, etc. That's huge. And Darnell trusting me and my brilliance. I come from medical device. I don't come from sports. So pivoting into that area and fitness, that's huge. But we also, and I'm going to pause here, we have other businesses and other interests. And Darnell, the fact that he's able to lead those things in our family is huge. So I'll let you talk about some of those other things and investments.
And as you speak to what Danielle just shared, and even some of the other businesses you guys are involved in, I think there's an important question or a thought that you might need to address as well. And this is for men, right? And we're going to switch to the verses, right? What the scripture says about this, because often men take Ephesians 5 out of context, right? Especially the latter half of Ephesians 5, where it says, wives, submit to your own husbands, right? And that's really become a dirty word, this whole submission word. And the way a lot of men have processed and understood the relationship between a husband and wife in the context of Ephesians 5 is they think wives submitting to their husbands means lordship, when what Paul is really talking about is leadership, right? Not lording it over the woman, but being the responsible party in leading. The fact that you defer to Danielle is huge.
And it is leadership.
That is leadership.
Most godly form.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want you to maybe, as you're sharing your story, maybe even from your perspective, being the CEO initially and saying, no, this is something I'm going to defer or transfer to Danielle. How important is that for men to recognize that in their relationships, that sometimes it's okay where you're not necessarily in the front seat or the driver's seat?
Yeah, well, I think first, it was very clear. Danielle and I met, and before we ever dated and we were just friends, it was very clear how sharp she was and how, from A to Z, she can do it, right? I mean, whether it's marketing or it's sales or it's operations or it's branding. I mean, she just has this ability to see things and see visions and then actively get in and tactically carry those things out.
Yeah.
It's unlike any kind of individual I've seen that can do all those things. Some people are really good at one or the other.
Right.
She's really good at kind of all of them. That was an easier decision because I had seen the works in progress and thought, there's things she can do that I know are deficiencies of mine that she can do, and then she can do the other things as well. So that part was an easier decision. I think the other piece that I'd never really thought of from a faith perspective, maybe until like these later years, is growing up and playing basketball, and you want to be known, and you want to be famous and rich and do those types of things. Right. So being a CEO and having a title and having people say, oh, he's a CEO and he's successful and that stuff. Initially, I think that might be a driving force, but I think as I look back and the faith and understanding that stuff is not that important to me, that part, it was easy to let go of that. I didn't need people to look at me and say, he's smart, he's a CEO, he's this, he's that, because I felt like if I just had an internal self-confidence and felt I knew what I could do and knew I could carry out XYZ task, I was okay with that. Whether someone else thought I could or not, that was an ego thing. It wasn't a God thing for me. Yeah. But I don't know that I realized that until later in life. So I'd probably say that was kind of the dual purpose for me, was she could do it, right, and probably at a better clip than me. I felt that way. Yeah. And I still feel that way because what she's done is utterly amazing in the last 4 or 5 years. But the other piece, I think, was the fact that internally I didn't need the gratification of other people looking at me, as I could be in the background and be just as good with that as being out in front.
That's so powerful and so profound. And so there's something about your relationship, at least the thoughts that come to mind and the words that come to mind. There's such an ease about how you guys engage and interact. It's effortless, right? I wonder how much of that also has to do with the fact that you guys have discovered your own lanes, right? And you celebrate that, where you complement each other instead of competing, right? Would that be maybe accurate, or is that something you want to speak to there? Even for couples watching, right? Where you become a complement instead of competition.
And I think you have to go through that process. It's like a butterfly. So I don't want the couples listening to feel you go from, oh, I'm married, to, oh, I've discovered what my gifts are and ministry, and boom, we're complimenting. No. Right. You do go through that phase of competing, right? It just like any point guard, with the rest of the team, quarterback with the right, you if you're competitive and if you're in business and that's part of your soul, right? I'm being very transparent. Yeah. You will go through that phase. You don't code it as that's your husband. You don't code it as that's your wife. You're competing for yourself. You're competing to get to your next. And just so happen that person is there. So I want to be very transparent about that. Absolutely. Yes, we've had our battles. We have definitely gone through that phase of growth where we realize that I see his strength in leadership, in the fact that, one, he allows me to be who I am, but two, the fact that he realizes that his strength is strategy behind the scenes. Right. That he doesn't have to be the person with, the title and with the fist in order to make something succeed. Right. Darnell's behind the scenes, moving and building relationships. Everybody trusts him. He's amazing, right? So once we realize that part, that my gifts were here, his gifts were there, I think that helped us with the complimenting, and now we're there. Right. I can sit and brainstorm with him all day long as to what he needs to do to get to his next, and he does the exact same thing for me.
That's such a beautiful picture of, it reminds me of what we find in Proverbs 31. It says in there that the heart of her husband safely trusts her. Yeah. And when we see that woman, she wasn't just sitting at home taking care of the kids. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm in that season in my life. But it says she was getting up early. She was making money moves and making decisions. And the scripture says that her husband was standing in the city gates, and I just have a picture of her husband smoking a cigar, talking with his boys, and she's making it happen. And that is straight from scripture. So everybody's dynamic will be different, seasons will change, but I think your relationship, when you talked about ministry, there are so many sub ministries just from the little bit that you've shared that I could say, wow, that is so powerful, specifically to the body of Christ. And as men do their best, as especially men that are believers, and they want to lead, but they've been taught erroneously, and they think that leading is lording. Right. And even women in ministry, we can see a lot of competition if the wife has gifts to speak, and she wants to hold a prayer call at 12 midnight, and her husband is having one at 8 a.m. And it's supposed to be a compliment. Right. And even with us, I love that you brought up that you grow into that complimentary phase, that it can be competition. Because when we started the church, it in my mind, until I'm hearing you speak, I didn't think it was a competition. But I was speaking way before I met him. He was speaking. We have a great complementary. We are a great team in ministry. I mean, the Lord is with us. That is something that I cannot deny or make up. But starting the church, it's been 11 years now, but it had been early on difficult for me because I was used to traveling and speaking, and seasons change with our children and me being at home and taking care of. There had been this longing for so long. But what kept me is knowing the word. Yes. Knowing the word, that there is a grace for me in this season, that the Lord is with me. I can cook these dinners and take care of these babies and be available to them. In the last probably year, I have come to embrace it. I was very tearful about it. And not that I love my pastor. He just happens to be my husband. I think he's brilliant. So I never look at him and think, oh, I could have done that better. But there had been a longing in me like, okay, well, I thought it was going to be school teaching, and I'm not doing that now. And I thought I'd be traveling and being this evangelist, and I'm not doing that now. But I'm just going to be happy with this Sonic and stand in the carpool line. And a couple of months ago, I felt like the Lord just revealed to me, wow, I never had to put my children in aftercare. And there's nothing wrong. I taught school for 12 years. I have served in aftercare. I love public school education. That's what I come from. That's what I did. But for me, that had never really happened in my family. And I've been able to be home. And I've been, when my son, oh, this is a cute story. Levi, I'm putting your business in the street. Someone asked him, will you be my Valentine? And he accepted. So Valentine's Day, he's 12.
He's 12.
He's in 6th grade.
It's a fun age. In fact, he was in the cafeteria, and the young lady walks across the cafeteria to where he's sitting with his boys, and she has all these little pieces of paper, and she says, hey, Levi, can you put this together and tell me what it says? And so he starts to, come on, Soul Train. What do you call that, Soul Train scramble board? Levi starts working that Soul Train scramble board, and sure enough, it said,
that is awesome.
She said, will you be my
Valentine?
And it was all torn up because she got afraid and ripped it up, and her girlfriends were like, no, go and do it. So he accepts, yes, I'll be your Valentine. She dropped off the puzzle, went back, and so he's giving her the thumbs up across the room. Well, we made sure that he got her a nice little box of candy and an appropriate card, happy Valentine's Day, no love or anything like that. So Ray took him and got all of that. Well, he calls me on Monday, which is Valentine's Day, and says, Mommy, can you come pick me up from school? And I said, sure, I thought you were catching the bus. He said, yes, but so-and-so was waiting for her mother, and I didn't want to be rude and just leave her hanging. So I stayed after and talked with her till her mother got there, and I felt like, oh, this is way too deep for me to feel this. He's only 12.
He's a Harmon man. Come on, somebody.
Wow, that is so great. And I was like, yes, I'll pick you up. And I loved that, because this isn't anything that we actually taught him. We didn't say. And then I thought, oh, that is great. So anyway, if I were at work, I don't know if I would be able to appreciate Those small little moments.
That's it.
That might not mean anything to anybody else, but for me, it meant a lot that I had the ability to stop what I was doing and go pick him up from school because he was being a gentleman. And I think being able to support him at 12 years old will make him a confident man. Yes, it's just this little Valentine's Day, but for him to feel supported that when I do the right thing, that there is benefit and support, and it'll help him make the wise choice. So for me in my life, where there had been an equal mourning and appreciation of being at home, there is now the most appreciation and no mourning, because I can see we're putting the word of God in my children.
That's
right.
Because I've had time.
That's right.
Is paying off. And so we have those different seasons. But as you were talking, I was just like, oh, that is the Proverbs 31 woman, where she's making decisions. It says she was dyeing purple. She had people working for her. She was up early in the morning. And it just said her husband was standing in the city gates.
No, but in what you just described is the exact same thing, right? I think that as women, we're so multidimensional.
Right,
we're competing to get to our next. And so that's what it was with Darnell and I. When I went through that phase where I had to turn off my competition, it wasn't that I wanted to compete with him. I was really competing for my purpose.
Right.
Because purpose is so important. And I wanted to turn that on so much to make sure that he was proud, my children were proud, I was proud of myself. So I don't care what you're doing, right?
Yes.
We're competing for a purpose.
Yeah.
And as you go through that phase, it will feel differently and it will impact yourself and your marriage along the way. So you do have to have your faith as your foundation. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
In order to get through that.
Yeah.
It really is.
You do.
Hey, let's talk about that some, right? Because part of sort of the heartbeat of this series is helping couples or even individuals navigate conflict, right? We've talked about the successes, and I have one of your products here, which is the weighted training gloves, Power Hands, and so there have been tremendous successes. In fact, I was on your website, and just all the endorsements from the different magazines and the articles, and just the science behind your product, and the people who are part of the tech and the research. It absolutely blew my mind that you guys have done this in only 7 years?
Yeah.
Mind-boggling, and so we see the successes and we celebrate those successes with you. Let's talk a little bit about the behind the scenes. In fact, Kirk Franklin recently did a post, probably about 2 weeks ago, and he was just sharing his story of being an empath and how things that happened around him, man, really wear on him emotionally and psychologically. The second half of his post was about the fact, in fact, he made this statement. He said, "Don't be fooled by the filters." And he talks about how people, when he posts a picture with his wife Tammy, how they get, over 100,000 likes, and people are like, "Man, I just love you guys." And he said, "Man, people don't know this, but I think just around December," he said, "we had one of the worst fights we have ever had." He said, "In fact, I packed my bag, I left the house." He said, "I came back the next morning and we were still in the same place." He said, "We both had to get in the car and go over to a friend's house who had to be the mediator, who had to run intervention, so to speak, in order for us to find ourselves again." I share Kirk's story. In fact, let's do this. Let's cut to that video now, and then we'll come right back.
Y'all know me and Tammy. Y'all see me post pictures with me and Tammy. Y'all know I love Tammy. Y'all know Tammy loves me. And if you follow me, you know we celebrated 26 years just 2 weeks ago. I need for you to know this. Do not be fooled by filters. Say it again. Do not be fooled by filters. Everything on Instagram and social media is a filter. It's the filter to make you look pretty, to make you look good, to make everything look perfect. There is no perfect relationship. There's no perfect relationship. Me and my wife got into one of the biggest arguments that we have gotten into in years just back in December, and it was a hard one. And I don't know about you, if you've ever been in an argument with somebody you love and you can't figure out how it started, you can't figure out how to get out because you hurting, she hurting, and no matter what you say, don't make it no better. And it's like, and we just got stuck. We got stuck. And I grabbed a bag and I said, you know what? I'm going to leave out before I say something that I don't need to say. And I grabbed a bag and I spent the night and I came back the next morning. And it was still rough, and it got rough. And I thank God for Christian friends. I thank God for godly friends. We went over to a couple's house, and I was like, yo, man, y'all need to talk to us because we can't get out of this block. Thank God for Corey. Thank God for Sarah Miller. And we went over to their crib. And I'm telling y'all this, man, because so many people are walking away. Listen, man. Marriage is not supposed to be happy, comfortable fairy tale like the rom-com movie. That ain't gonna be it all the time. And me and wife have been rocking for 26 years, and it ain't no perfect marriage. It ain't no perfect marriage. Stop looking at people's relationships on social media and stop romanticizing these unrealistic relationships that you don't know the depths of what they go through. I'm telling you, me and my girl have mountains. But by the grace of God, we climb them. I didn't have a daddy teach me. I didn't have a mama to show me love. And we all know a mama is a boy's first love. And a boy is mama's last love. I'm telling you all this, man, because so many people are walking away before they get to the good part of life. I'm begging you, man. I know what mental illness is. I've dealt with it for years in my family. I know what mental illness is. I know the shame that for African Americans we hide in. I know the distrust that we have with the health community. I know that we have so many issues that we bring to the table. I know the trauma of being a black man in America. I understand all of that. I'm telling you, there's so many things that are at your disposal now to get you help. Man, it's okay to not be okay. I just wanted to start the year keeping it a buck with y'all. Y'all don't have to live a masquerade, don't have to live fake. Don't live fake. Every day by grace, I'm walking every day by grace. I'm getting the help I need. I'm talking. I'm having the relationship. I'm spending time with the Lord. I'm going to, listen, man, get outside, get you some sun. There's medicine in sun. There's medicine and some sunshine. Turn the doggone phone off. Just sit by the park, sit by the lake, do whatever you need to do. Get with your loved one. Get with your wife. Get up under the covers, play the fart game. You know what I'm saying? Hold the covers down and bam, and kill her. And then she give you back, bam, and y'all be, oh, girl, you so great. Oh, girl, you stink. Oh, girl, you mess. And man, listen, smile and let go of everyone and everything that continues to reject your help. Jesus died on the cross so you don't have to. Man, I want y'all to have a great new year. Stay healthy. And it's okay to not be okay.
Kirk, don't be fooled by the filters, right? And we say this often at Converge Church, right? We can impress people with our successes, but they will more readily identify with our struggles. So I'm going to ask you guys, right, for the benefit of the dreamers, the people out there building legacy who might find themselves in a place where they're experiencing more conflict than fulfillment, right? They might still be competing, and they're competing for purpose. Help us, walk us through maybe some of those moments, or maybe even best practices or things that you learned along the way that got you from where you were in those moments to your next. I'm talking about when it gets ugly and things aren't happening as fast as you thought they should, or they're not happening the way, or it just seems like nothing's happening. You're ready to throw in the towel. And this is what I know, is sometimes, right, when you're under that kind of pressure, you turn not just toward, but you sometimes turn against the people in closest proximity to you, because anyway, I don't want to get into that. We want to hear from you. Tell us about some of the behind the scenes, right? We're going to take off the filters, right? We're going to get rid of the highlight reel. Let's talk about the behind the scenes. We see power hands an amazingly successful brand. In fact, you guys just brought LaMelo Ball on as a brand ambassador. We see the successes. Help us navigate some of the struggles when he said, and then she said, and you guys didn't see it the same way. And because of your foundation of faith, you landed on the truth.
Yeah.
How real can we get on this?
As real as you would like to get.
As I always say, like, our story is not for us, it's to bless someone else.
Absolutely.
So if we think selfishly, then we should be real.
Yeah. Now, we're typically pretty real about this. And I'll start with saying there's 10 times more losses than wins in business, and I think in life.
Pump the brakes. I think people really need to hear that. Because most of us don't like that kind of math.
Yeah. Yes.
10 times more losses than wins.
Yes.
Conservatively.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the things you go through on a day-to-day basis and what highlight reels you could actually put on Instagram, if we had an Instagram that got flipped into losses, people would be posting 5 and 10 times a day versus once a day. Or I think if you look at the reality of it, there's a lot more losses. A lot more downs and ups, right? But there's growth in those downs, and without those downs, how could you appreciate the ups? And so I think
So good.
I think you have to appreciate the downs, but you have to be real that those downs are coming, right? Those down, they're never going to stop. It's just how you approach them and how you deal with them when they come. Right. Specifically to Danyel and I, when it comes to working together or things that we go through, those things have been since we started the business, right? It could be 5 days a week that we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then maybe it gets better and it's once a week, and maybe we go 30 days, and then we come back and it's 5 days a week. 6 months later.
Right.
And so it's a season as well, right? There's seasons that come about. I think the more time you get into it, I think the more grounded you stay in your faith, whether you're consciously doing it or subconsciously doing it, is when you're able to, at certain moments, say, I know what this is. I've seen this before.
Right.
So where you can say, my reaction to this typically is frustration, because I'm far more short-tempered and anxious than Danyel is.
Right.
So I can look at it and say, my typical reaction is this.
Yeah.
And in that 1 or 2 seconds, I can say, okay, but I can't respond that way because I know what happened the last time.
Right.
And then I know where that one thing turned into 2 things, and that 2 things turned into 3 things, and that day turned into 5 days, and 5 days turned into 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think there's, I think it's both, right? It's knowing that we're gonna have those situations again.
Yeah.
But maybe me being able to tell her something when she's about to hit that situation, or her being able to tell me something.
Yeah.
Right? Or me identifying, oh wow, she just didn't give me the reaction I thought she was gonna give me. And then that pulls me all the way back. Like, I need to take a step back. So I'll let you get more detailed on it, but I just want to highlight the fact that successes, and it's funny when you said Power Hands, uberly successful company, Danyel and I have the same reaction all the time as the successes. People view the success, well, what is that success? Is the success the money that's made? Is the success the impact that's been made? Is success the visibility, right? Whether there's any money or any real impact, is it just the visibility?
Yeah.
What is the success? And we're hard on ourselves, so, right, our success is gonna be different than someone else's success, but it's just interesting because I think, irregardless, we would look at it and say, we haven't done enough.
Right.
Or it's not that successful, right?
Yeah.
But we have made a lot of impact, and we have great products, and we've done great things, but there's always so much more to be done.
So can I jump in there for a second? A couple of things I'm going to say. Remind me, LA Lakers, so I don't forget. Okay. But we said this last, well, it wasn't last week. No, it was last week on the broadcast, right? We said, and I think you alluded to it, we all have triggers, right? And our triggers will activate certain patterns in our lives, right? Our patterns speak to what is predictable, right? So if we recognize our patterns and the triggers that activate certain patterns in our lives, they become predictable. But here's the good news. Whatever is predictable is also preventable.
That's right.
And so what I heard you say, that when in those seasons and moments of conflict, you knew what the triggers were, you had seen the patterns, because you recognized the patterns, it was not only predictable, but it also became preventable, right? And I think that's something really important for all couples to understand and recognize. Here's the second thought. LA Lakers, man, they were kind of building their dynasty, post Chicago Bulls in the early 90s. Phil Jackson is the coach. You've got 2 superstars in Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. They're winning championships. And a lot of times we think that, man, we've arrived, right? You've got the rings, you've got the trophies, but you have two people on the same team who can't stand each other. And I think a lot of times in relationships and marriages, that's so true, right? We have the successful, the external success, but on the inside or behind the scenes, you got a Shaq and a Kobe, a husband and a wife that can't stand each other. But we got the rings, we got the trophies, but we hate each other, right? And anyway, I'll let you speak to that, Danielle. I know Darnell shared a little bit about some of those patterns, but would you trade sort of the ease and the effortlessness you guys have in your relationship now for the rings or the trophies or any of the external successes?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
Where Darnell and I are right now, I just told a friend, I said, I feel like we are so in tune with each other. We're in a dating phase again, and I'm more in love than I have ever been in my life. And it is because of those seasons. It is because of those struggles. It's because of those fights, because that helped me realize who I am. That helped me appreciate who he is. And I think he went through that same growth process, right? To get through those seasons, because we are going to continue to go through seasons until the day we go meet our king, right? And the realization of who you are and how those triggers impact that season is really the success of you as an individual, right? The success of me as a mother, the success of me as a wife, the success of me as a businesswoman. And that's why I'm so proud of, I don't fake anything on Instagram. I post, but I also tell people when they see me, don't believe what's just on Instagram. Please know that life is so much more and so much harder. It seems like I have it all together. I do not. It seems like that whatever you want to look at as the perfect marriage, that's Darnell and I. No, we're perfect because we're imperfect. We're perfect because we are very transparent about who we are, and we've been able to grow because of it. And I think for a best practice perspective is, for those people, whether you are in a business together or you're building legacy together, remember why you hired each other, right? So remember why, in the fact of us in Power Hands, why you trusted me to come into the kitchen that day and tell me about the idea. Why you trusted me to the point where you said, Danielle, you need to be CEO, plus why you trust me to be your wife and the mother of your kids.
Huge.
The very same thing in thought process. Then that elevates your grace. That grace that you have to give each other as a couple, in making sure that you give each other the benefit of the doubt. Oh my gosh, in your words, in your actions, to know that we're always on the same team. And I think that's why Kobe and Shaq ended up doing well. They didn't get along, but Shaq was probably the one that cried the most when Kobe passed.
Absolutely.
Right? Because he realized that no matter what our struggles are, man, we're on the same team, and I always had your back. And you gave me the benefit of the doubt, even when I really didn't see it, but I felt it. And thank goodness I recognized that before it's too late. And
So
Darnell recognizes it as well.
So good. All right. We're about to close, right? And here's where we're going to close. We're going to close on the truth, right? He said, she said, we're going to land on the truth of God's word. And baby, can you help us walk through that? Because I know that on your website, right, for Power Hands, it talks, you have your core values listed. And right front and center is faith, right? That's important to not only how you do life personally, how you do life relationally. It's also important how you do life professionally. And so Wendy and I, we've used these rules of engagement from Ephesians chapter 4 in our own relationship personally, and when we're doing relationship coaching and biblical counseling or biblical counseling, we often refer to Ephesians chapter 4 verse 25. So we're going to read through these rules of engagement, and one of the reasons we think it's important as we're building legacy is to learn to fight fair. Right, and that's one of the greatest discoveries we've made is fight fair. One of the things we said in the Bible study about a week ago was that it's so easy to weaponize our words, and Solomon said it this way, that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat the fruit thereof. And I think one of the ways we negatively impact our relationships and even purpose is when we weaponize our words. So Ephesians 4, these are rules of engagement to live by. And as we read through this, maybe there are certain rules in here that have resonated with you guys that you've learned from and discovered. And that's where we'll close. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. You're going to walk us through? You're going to read?
What is walk the through? You want me to read?
Okay, so yes.
Last week, I resigned from being his scripture reader.
She did, because I have this thing where I interrupt.
Me?
I'm rehiring you. You ready?
I don't mind.
Do you want to take the job?
interruption,
You don't mind the interruption?
but there's going to be a sign-on bonus.
Okay. There's going to be a bonus. I'll pay you whatever you want, baby.
Okay.
Whatever the bonus
I'm
is
coming
yours.
back.
All right. What is Ephesians 4? What
Ephesians
you got?
4, 25 through 32 in the New Living Translation. It says, "Stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all part of the same body."
Okay, so let's stop there. This is where the tension builds, right? Because you'll read and then I'll jump in. So the first thing it says is stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth. A lot of times in relationships, right, we don't give people permission to speak freely. So they don't always tell us what they mean. They don't always mean what they say, and they don't always say what they mean. How important would you say that is in your relationship? Maybe even saying, you know what? You have the freedom to speak what's on your heart. And so one of the ways we say it here at Converge is the truth may hurt, but it will never harm. Ultimately, the truth heals. And I tell the story about being in a car accident, going to the chiropractor. He's doing all these adjustments that really hurt. They were painful during and after the fact. But nothing he did harmed, even though it hurt. Ultimately, what he did, all those adjustments and all the tissue work that hurt momentarily, ultimately healed. And I think sometimes in relationships, because we're unwilling to speak the truth, because like, oh man, that might hurt, we end up telling lies. And sometimes the lies we tell are not just outright blatant lies, they're just, I'm not going to tell you the whole truth. Right? How important is that for you guys to be truth tellers in your relationship? Or do you have permission to speak freely?
I think you do.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, and I'm speaking from the fact that I want Darnell to always be able to come and tell me anything. Yeah. He may not feel that way, right? I may put up some barriers that I don't know that I'm building, right? But I want him to always tell me the truth, because the truth is connected to his happiness. I can see and feel and know when he's not happy.
Right.
And if I'm not aware of those things, then I'm not doing my job in order to fulfill his needs. So that piece is very important to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. I think it's something I think individuals say, we want the truth, I want the truth. I want you to feel comfortable, say everything.
Right.
But to Danielle's point, you put up these barriers. So I will say myself, I probably put up a lot of barriers, but I do enjoy the truth. If it's her internal truth that I can assist with or understand better. Right. Versus not knowing and I can't help her assist, and then I feel like, why are you bringing this up now when we could have told me this a week ago, right? And I didn't know. So it is very important, but I probably do put up a lot more barriers than I should.
Yeah. Here's another one, rules of engagement. Can I read this real quick?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let me read this real quick because we're going to skip around in these verses. Here's a rule of engagement that hasn't always been easy for us, but we're growing and developing in, right? When there is conflict, notice what he says. It says, don't sin by letting anger control you. In sort of the traditional version, it says, be angry and sin not, right? And so I always like to emphasize the fact that Scripture does say, be angry.
Yes.
But in your anger, do not sin. And then it goes on to say, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. One translation says, do not let the sun go down on your wrath, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. Any thoughts around that, man? The things we let fester, the things we let linger. Are you guys, have you kind of learned this practice of, hey man, something ain't right, we got to talk?
I'm gonna take this one.
Yes,
And I'll give Danielle.
because you anger not.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what that means, but yeah. That's a good one. That's one that I've been working on. I'm still working on. It is far easier for me to go to bed angry than for Danielle to go to bed angry. It's far easier for me to hold on to something for a week than it is for Danielle to hold on to something for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
She causes more arguments, but I hang on longer.
That's hilarious.
I'm kidding. But no, in all seriousness, she actually is the one that is intently telling me, hey, let's just talk about this and get it over. Let's figure it out and let's move beyond it. What do you need? Let me tell you what I need. Let's get past it. I'm the type, I can go to bed upset and then wake up upset. I'm working on that. She's helped me with that.
Yeah.
Rules of engagement. I got to get better at that one.
Yeah.
For sure.
No. So we had to learn that lesson as well. Where did we land in letting the sun go down on our wrath? Where would you say we land?
Oh, because I can identify more with Darnell, and I can see where Ray can identify more with Danielle.
Wow.
He wants to work it out.
Yeah.
I used to just turn into the Incredible Hulk. I can feel the anger rumbling at my feet and building up, and so I'm just like, I cannot talk about it right now because you're gonna get something, and I could sleep real good being mad, heart beating real fast. It would take me a little while, and then wake up. Just pick right back up where I left off. And my stance was, because you say it all the time, you've been saying it during this series, if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. And so I did not have good communication tools. Though nobody taught me this, I thought as long as there were no arguments, everything was good. As soon as there were arguments, then the relationship was over. And I hear some women say, oh, me and my girlfriend, we were mad, but now we're talking. I did not have a lot of conflict in my life. I wasn't falling out with girlfriends. I wasn't falling out with my sister and family members. I just don't have a lot of conflict like that. So getting married, and he's, easygoing. I'm very passionate though. So if I'm mad all the way. I'm like, I'm here for the ride. And so he would say, we would try to talk it through. But because before I knew his name, I always viewed him as being brilliant. So even in conflict, I would begin to feel embarrassed because he could nicely speak about it, and I'm ready to fight. I'm just like, look, we could take it to the street. We were arguing one time, and I said, you might have been born in Liberia, but you are die in America. And I'm like, why am I resorting to violence? But I was all the way there. I never even throw plates and all of this, but just ghetto monster. I needed deliverance. And so that's where we used to be. But you get older and you just kind of mellow out. One thing is, though, the safety of him is I would just lose it, and he would still just want to come back and talk about it. And we were talking about this last week. I think a lot of our conflict early in our marriage, is going on 21 years now, wasn't so much of the conflict we had with one another. It was conflict within me because of my response. So I didn't want to be angry. I've known him 23 years, and I have never, ever heard him use one word of profanity. He doesn't even use the words if he's retelling a story. That ain't my testimony. So, just because of that, I'll be like, well, And I've been delivered, but early on. And so a lot of when we had conflict, my festering, I had legitimate reason to be married. I'm not one of them chicks that just wake up married. I mean, I had legitimate reasons to be angry. I'm not a person that just is angry for no reason. However, is in resolving the conflict, because I did not have a lot of good communication tools, then we can never let the thing be the thing.
Right.
So I'm angry about the thing, then now I'm angry about how I responded, and then I'm angry because you want to be all nice about it and just sit down and talk, and I'm thinking, we could just wrap this up, we could just, one time I told him, I said, I just don't even think marriage is for me, because I'm the underlying factor here, and this thing is just not working out. And he would say, no, we're meant to be together. And so I had asked, one of my friends had gotten married, I worked with before we were married, and her 94-year-old grandmother was there, had been married 60-something years, and I asked her, what is the secret to being married? And she said, never fall out of love on the same day.
Come on.
And I believe that has been our testimony for 21 years, is we've not fallen out of love on the same day. When I was ready to throw in the towel, he was like, no. If he were ever ready to throw in the towel, he's not ever voiced it. Because I'm the one, I'm like her friend, I could pack my stuff up and I could be gone. I'm not even coming back the next day. You don't have to find me. That's how I used to be. But then you turn 50 and you're just like, I don't even have all that energy. And I have put all this good investment into him. And so I'm not going to let Kiki get all my good stuff. So that's where I am now. So, but I think that, it's been a good testimony. It's been a good growing. Yeah. And the best thing about that is our kids did not have to experience that level of immaturity. We married, I don't know if it's late or not, but we didn't have Nia till we were already 33, Levi 39. And so we had great counseling by the time they have come around. And so, but that was a great area for me. I didn't want to be angry, but because I'm just like, come on in, devil. Sit down, have a cup of coffee, stay a little while. So.
No, thank you so much, baby, for sharing that. And that's just a little bit of our story. And I wish we had more time, right? Because we could do this. We could do this for hours. Yeah. I'm just going to close here with the rest of the passage. It says, don't use foul or abusive language. He's saying, don't weaponize your words. Instead, let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. And do not bring sorrow to God's Holy Spirit by the way you live. Remember, He has identified you as His own, guaranteeing that you will be saved on the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness. I wish we had time to talk about that. The bitterness, right? Unresolved conflict.
That's good.
The way we say it is, you live on low simmer.
Yes.
You never turn off the heat. It's just on low simmer, and the moment you put a little bit of salt or whatever, man, that thing is ready. And a lot of people live there with bitterness, low simmer, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, it says, be kind to each other. Here it is, tender-hearted. That's where we miss it, right? We have thin skin, and so we have hardened hearts. When God wants us to develop thick skin so that we have tender hearts. He said, instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted. How do I become tender-hearted? Forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. Those are rules of engagement from Ephesians chapter 4. Listen, I wish we had more time to unpack this. We're going to have y'all come back. How about that?
Yeah.
Would you?
We'd love
If
to.
y'all can weave us into your schedule and we can talk about this some more. I pray that what Danielle and Darnell shared was a blessing to you. Any final thoughts as we close to the dreamers and the builders out there?
I would say dream bigger than your biggest dream.
Wow. I
Dream
like
bigger.
that.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a really good one. Yeah. I would say be thermostat and not the thermometer.
Very good.
Very
Set
good.
the temperature.
Set the temperature.
Don't let the temperature set you.
Yes.
Don't let the temperature
Yes.
set you. Pastor Wendy, any final thoughts before I pray?
Yes, I just wanted to encourage those. Some of you may be watching, you may not be married. You may be married and you're like, we argued before we sat down to watch this. And you may feel like, oh, what they have, I'm never going to have. But I don't want you to miss that it has been a process for us all. This is a moment to encourage you, and we've tried to share some vulnerable situations, but don't feel hopeless. Don't feel like, I'm not working out with this person, I'm just going to put them aside and get me a 2022 model. That is not the answer. So just be encouraged that we are all works in progress, and that you too have 100% chance of having a healthy relationship, and you are feeding that by even sitting down and taking in these moments. And I say that because there were so many times, so many years, I would watch other couples, and I would watch other women especially, and I'm like, oh, I wish I were like that. I wish I were just so gentle and peaceful and everything. And I'm getting there. It's been a long road, but I'm not sleeping on Wendy Harmon. And I say that to encourage you. If you're looking at us and you're thinking, oh, I'm never going to have that, or I want that, don't let your heart be weary. God is faithful.
Yes, He is.
He is faithful. If you heard their story, there were some issues even with having their children, but God is faithful.
Yes,
it wasn't an easy road. You hear so many times about what we've been through. So my final word would be for you to be encouraged. For this just to be a small glimpse of what God can do. He's not a respecter of person. And if you need prayer in that area, you can, the email will be down. Is it info? Or eCampus, eChurch at weareconverge.com. Shoot us an email. It'll be confidential. Someone from our team, our eChurch campus directors, will pray for you. Or if you want Pastor Ray and I to pray for you. But use this as a moment to be hopeful and not hopeless.
Amen.
Amen.
That's a fantastic word. Again, all I'll say is don't be fooled by the filters. And to Darnell's point, there are usually 10 times as many struggles as there are successes. Persevere, be resilient, and always, always rely on the God who indwells you to help you get through those most difficult seasons. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, Darnell, Danielle, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with a very special edition. We've got 2 special guests who will be with us next week as we close out. Are we closing out?
No.
I don't think we're closing out, but join us next week. And remember, we're back in person on March 5th. So plan accordingly. We look forward to seeing you and hugging your neck. God bless you. We'll see you then.
You got to pray for the people.
Oh, yes.
You are blessed in Jesus' name. We'll see you next week.
If you were impacted by today's worship experience, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe today's sermon was exactly what you needed to hear, or you prayed the prayer of salvation for the first time. If so, we've got some information that we'd love to send you to help kickstart your relationship with God. Or if you want more information on how to join our virtual family, please email us at echurch@weareconverge.com. If you'd like to partner with us financially, you can do so online safely and securely by visiting www.weareconverge.com/give. Or you can give via text by texting Converge Give along with the dollar amount that you'd like to donate to 77977. Also, you can find all this information on our mobile app. Simply search the app or the Play Store for Converge Church Plano and download the app. It's that easy. Thank you again for joining us for today's worship experience. We look forward to staying connected with you.